The first time I met Karen Brooks, she was staring at my backyard like she'd just discovered buried treasure. The afternoon sun was blazing, heat rippling off the concrete, and my brand new pool shimmered like glass. I was still half unpacked, trying to hook up the garden hose, when I heard the sharp, rhythmic click of heels on the driveway. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" a woman's voice called out, polite but edged, the kind of tone that makes you instinctively stand straighter. I turned and found her standing there, late 50s, perfectly styled blonde hair, white linen blouse, clipboard tucked under one arm like a badge of authority. Her smile was so tight it looked painful. "I'm Karen Brooks," she said, extending a manicured hand. "President, for life, apparently, of the Maplewood Estates HOA. That last part made her laugh, but the joke didn't quite reach her eyes. Before I could answer, she leaned slightly to the side, catching a glimpse of the pool glinting behind me. Her eyes widened. The smile changed. No longer polite, but possessive. "Oh, how wonderful," she said breathlessly. "You've done such a great job maintaining the community pool." I blinked. Community pool?" Karen gave a small laugh, like I'd just told a naive joke. "Yes, dear. The pool that belongs to all of us. The previous owners were so kind, they always let the neighborhood use it." My hand froze on the hose. "This isn't a community pool," I said slowly. "It's mine. Came with the house." That's when her smile vanished, just for a second. Then it snapped back in place, even tighter. "Oh, there must be some confusion. The HOA has always considered that pool a shared amenity. It's practically part of the neighborhood charm." She said it like it was already decided, like I was the one being unreasonable. I crossed my arms. "There's no confusion. It's on my property." Karen made a small tisk sound and scribbled something on her clipboard. "Well, we'll revisit this at the next HOA meeting. You'll need to attend. We like to keep our community spirit alive." She turned and walked away, heels clicking, her tone light and breezy. But I couldn't shake the feeling I'd just been marked. The next few days were fine, peaceful even. I spent mornings setting up the deck furniture, evenings floating in the pool with a beer in hand. Birds chirped, kids laughed down the street. The kind of suburban bliss I'd wanted for years. Then, one Friday afternoon, I came home to find her. Karen, in my backyard. She was stretched out on one of my new lounge chairs, a wide-brimmed hat shading her face, sipping lemonade like she owned the place. Her clipboard rested neatly on the table beside her. I froze, halfway down the steps. "What the hell are you doing in my yard?" Karen lowered her sunglasses slowly, like a queen, granting her subject a glance. "Oh, I was just enjoying some sun. You really should keep this area more open. It's so inviting for the neighborhood." "Inviting?" I repeated. "This is my property." "Yes, and as HOA president, it's my job to ensure shared spaces are properly maintained." I could feel my blood pressure climbing. "Shared spaces? This is my pool, my deck, my chairs." Karen waved a dismissive hand. "The previous owners never made such a fuss. Everyone loved how generous they were. Surely you don't want to start your time here by upsetting the neighbors." That last line, it wasn't a suggestion. It was a threat, sweetly packaged. I clenched my jaw. "Leave." Now her expression turned icy. "No need to be rude." She stood, gathered her clipboard, and started towards a gate. As she passed, she said softly, "We'll talk about this at the meeting." The meeting happened 2 days later. Without me. I hadn't even known where the HOA gathered, but apparently Karen made me the main topic. The next morning, as I stepped outside to grab the paper, I noticed a flyer taped to my mailbox. Community pool hours, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4 to 8 p.m. Saturdays, family swim day location, 427 Maplewood Drive. Bring your own towels. That was my address. I stood in the driveway, staring at the paper in disbelief. It wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. It was delusion. That evening I came home from work to laughter echoing from the backyard. My stomach dropped. I opened the gate and froze. 8 people, neighbors, their kids, splashing, shouting, floating on pool noodles. Music played from someone's speaker. And there, at the center of it all, stood Karen, whistle around her neck, waving her clipboard like a lifeguard baton. "Wonderful turnout," she called, spotting me. "We're building community spirit." I didn't move. Everyone out. Now, the laughter died instantly. The parents exchanged uneasy glances. One man muttered, Karen said it was open swim night." Karen's smile cracked. "You're being very selfish, Noah. This pool belongs to everyone. You can't just—" I cut her off, my voice sharper than I intended. "It belongs to me. You're trespassing." For a long moment, no one moved. Then one by one, people climbed out, grabbing towels, avoiding my eyes. Karen's face flushed deep red. "This isn't over," she hissed. "You'll be fined for violating HOA regulations." "Fine me," I said flatly, "but stay out of my yard." The next morning, a note was taped to my locked gate in elegant cursive. "You are in violation of HOA Regulation 7.3, restricting access to shared amenities. Remove this lock immediately or face disciplinary action." I crumpled it and tossed it in the trash. 2 days later, another one appeared, laminated this time like she was doubling down. Pool Rules 1. No diving in shallow end 2. Pool hours, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 3. No glass containers 4. Respect HOA safety guidelines. The audacity was almost impressive. She'd basically printed YMCA rules for my backyard. That night, I sat at my desk and pulled out the property file my realtor had given me. I studied the boundary map. The pool sat completely within my fence line, built 15 years before the HOA even existed. I flipped to the title page and ran my finger over the words. Lot 24, Block 3, Maplewood Estates. All structures and improvements included within property boundaries. A calm, cold determination settled over me. Karen wanted a fight? Fine. But this time, I'd be ready. The next few weeks felt like living in a bizarre alternate reality. One where my backyard had become the neighborhood's favorite vacation spot, and I was the unamused host who hadn't sent out the invitations. At first, I tried to ignore it. Maybe if I stayed quiet long enough, Karen would get bored and move on to someone else's property to control. But that was like hoping a hurricane would just lose interest mid-storm. The first real sign of escalation came one Saturday morning. I was on my 3rd cup of coffee, still half asleep, when I heard splashing outside. The unmistakable kind that meant someone was having way too much fun in my pool. I stepped out onto the patio, squinting against the sunlight. And there she was, Karen, wearing a bright pink swim cap, oversized sunglasses, and a floral swimsuit that matched neither her age nor her authority complex. She was waist-deep in the pool, doing water aerobics like she was auditioning for a retro workout tape. "Oh, good morning," she chirped, breathless from her workout. "Just getting my daily exercise in. The water's perfect today." For a second, I genuinely thought I was hallucinating. Karen, I said slowly, you can't just… This is my pool. She waved a dismissive hand, splashing water in the process. Don't be silly. The HOA has always encouraged community health and fitness. You should join sometime. It's great cardio. I stared, dumbfounded. This isn't a public gym, Karen. She smiled, sweet as poison. That's not what the community thinks. The next morning, I found a neatly laminated flyer taped to my mailbox. Community swim hours, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 to 8 p.m., all residents welcome. Hosted by Karen Henderson, HOA, President for Life. That evening, I came home from work to the sound of laughter. A lot of laughter. When I stepped into my backyard, my jaw dropped. At least 8 people were splashing in the pool. Kids cannonballing into the deep end, parents lounging on my patio furniture, someone grilling hot dogs on my portable grill. And there was Karen, whistle around her neck, barking instructions like a camp counselor. "Isn't this wonderful?" she called out, smiling as if she'd done me a favor. Building community bonds. I could feel the veins in my neck tighten. Everyone out. Now, the laughter died instantly. Parents exchanged awkward glances. Kids froze mid-swim. "Karen," I said firmly, "this is private property. You don't have permission to be here. None of you do." Her face turned the color of an overripe tomato. "You're being very selfish," she snapped. "This goes against the very spirit of our HOA. Community comes first." I pointed toward the gate. "Not when it's trespassing." By morning, the gate had a new addition, a heavy-duty padlock, and taped to it was another note written in Karen's flawless cursive. "You are in violation of HOA Regulation 7.3, restricting access to shared amenities. Remove this lock immediately or face fines." I laughed. Then I crumpled the note and tossed it straight into the trash. But Karen wasn't done. 2 days later, another laminated paper appeared, a full page of pool rules she drafted herself. No glass containers. Pool hours, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. No diving in shallow areas. The audacity would have been funny if it wasn't so absurd. She was treating my backyard like a public facility, her personal YMCA. Then came the final straw. I came home early one afternoon hoping for a quiet nap. Instead, I was greeted by music, oldies blaring from a boombox. I followed the sound to the backyard and froze. Karen had company. 3 other women, all wearing matching swimsuits, were performing a synchronized swimming routine in my pool. She had formed a club. "Karen," I said flatly, "what the hell is this?" She looked up, breathless but smug. "Aqua aerobics, dear. We're doing this every Tuesday now. It's for wellness and community engagement. You really should read the HOA newsletters." I stepped closer, my voice low and calm. "You need to leave, now, and don't come back." She climbed out slowly, dripping water like some soggy queen dethroned, her expression hardening. "You're making a big mistake," she hissed. "The HOA board will hear about this. You'll regret trying to defy me." Her words lingered like a storm warning. 2 days later, it hit. I was working from home when a sharp knock echoed through the house. I opened the door to find a uniformed officer standing there. Officer Martinez. His expression caught somewhere between polite confusion and disbelief. Behind him stood Karen, arms folded, eyes glittering with self-righteous triumph. "Sir," the officer began carefully, "we've received a complaint about restricted access to HOA amenities." I blinked. "You mean my pool?" Karen pushed past him, stepping into the foyer like she owned the place. "That's right." she declared dramatically. He's violating our HOA charter. That pool is community property, and he's selfishly hoarding it. For a moment, the absurdity hung in the air. Even Officer Martinez had to take a slow breath before continuing. Sir, do you have any documentation of ownership? Just to clear things up. Absolutely, I said, turning on my heel. I'd been waiting for this day. In my office drawer sat a folder I'd prepared weeks ago. Property deed, title documents, even the original survey. I returned, handed them over, and watched Martinez flip through them carefully. Karen craned her neck, her confidence fading with every line he read. After a moment, he cleared his throat and looked up. Ma'am, he said, his tone shifting to official authority, this pool is entirely on private property, installed years before the HOA even existed. You have no claim here. Karen's mouth fell open. But the previous owners always shared it. Intent doesn't override property law, he replied flatly. If you or anyone else enter again without permission, it's trespassing. The silence that followed was deafening, until a muffled snort of laughter came from the street. I turned to see a few neighbors gathered on their lawns, watching like it was a live drama. Karen's face flushed crimson. She turned toward them, desperate. You all use that pool. Tell him. No one moved. Not one person came to her defense. Officer Martinez handed me back my papers with a small, sympathetic smile. You're well within your rights, sir. I suggest keeping this on file, just in case. Thanks, officer, I said, my voice steady, but my pulse still hammering. Karen stood frozen on the lawn, her authority crumbling in real time. For the first time since I'd met her, she looked genuinely lost. As the police car pulled away, I glanced back at her. Have a nice day, Madam President, I said dryly, closing the door. That night, I sat by the window, staring out at the pool. Calm, silent, mine. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Not for Karen. People like her didn't just admit defeat. They regrouped. They plotted. And somewhere in that quiet suburban night, I could almost feel her planning her next move. For a brief, beautiful week, peace returned. No flyers, no whistles, no unwelcome aerobics classes in my backyard. The silence almost felt unnatural, like the calm before a storm. But I should have known better. Karen Henderson wasn't the kind of woman who accepted defeat quietly. It began with whispers. A few neighbors mentioning an emergency HOA meeting. Karen had called to discuss serious rule violations. Then came the side glances, the hushed conversations that stopped whenever I walked by. By Thursday, I found a thick envelope on my doorstep, stamped with the HOA logo, or rather, Karen's personal version of it. Inside was a formal letter accusing me of unauthorized privatization of community resources and demanding I appear at the next board meeting to explain myself. I laughed so hard, I nearly spilled my coffee. Still, I decided to show up, not to defend myself, but to finish this once and for all. The meeting was held in the community center, a modest beige building that smelled faintly of old carpet and stale coffee. When I arrived, every seat was filled. Neighbors lined the walls, murmuring with anticipation. The drama of Poolgate, as someone had dubbed it online, had become the neighborhood's favorite form of entertainment. At the front sat Karen, clipboard in hand, chin raised high like a general about to address her troops. Even from across the room I could see it, the cracks in her perfect composure. Let's come to order, Karen snapped, her voice sharp. We're here to address a blatant violation of HOA principles. Mr. Lawson has denied access to a community pool. I stood, calm and steady. Actually, I said, we're here to correct 7 years of your delusion. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I placed a manila folder on the table, my deed, and the original HOA charter from county records. The board's lawyer, Mr. Reynolds, flipped through the pages. The only sound was the soft rustle of paper. Finally, he looked up. This property is not part of any HOA-maintained land. The pool predates the HOA by 3 years. The room exploded with whispers. Karen let out a forced laugh. That's absurd. Everyone knows that pool's for residents. Intent doesn't override ownership, Reynolds said smoothly. The pool belongs solely to Mr. Lawson. Karen's face turned crimson. You can't just... But Mrs. Chen stood up. Karen, you called the cops on a man for using his own pool. Enough is enough, Tom added dryly. And you tried to claim my hot tub, remember? Laughter rippled. Even the board members avoided her gaze. I motion for a vote, Mrs. Chen said. Hands shot up. 28 for removal, 2 against. It was over. Karen slammed the table. You're making a mistake, Tom smirked. Maybe try minding your own property for once. Even Reynolds smiled, before delivering the final blow. Karen, he said, your house sits 15 feet outside HOA boundaries. You were never even a legal member. Silence. Then chaos, laughter, gasps, disbelief. Karen's clipboard clattered to the floor as the truth hit. 7 years of control, gone in an instant. A week later, peace returned. I floated in my pool under the afternoon sun. Calm, quiet, mine. The new fence stood tall, cameras blinked softly. The gate chimed, and a pleasant voice echoed, Welcome to private property. This pool is not community property. I laughed out loud. Karen had been billed $5,000 for unauthorized legal actions. When Tom saw her at the store, she fled before he could even say hello. Her reign was over. As sunset danced across the water, the chime repeated, This pool is not community property. I smiled, floating in gold light. No, I whispered, it most definitely is not.